Okay, so today we're going to talk about procrastination, but probably not in the way that most people talk about it. Like, this isn't going to be just like, oh, just do better to-do lists, like start downloading another app, or trying to be more disciplined, right? Like, because I imagine most of you already know what you should be doing. And so the real question is, why don't we do it when we know that it actually matters? And as I go through this presentation, if at any point I'm starting to speak too fast or get a little bit too excited and the New Zealand accent becomes a little bit too hard to understand, just put a message in the chat and I'll slow it right down. Just because I find this topic is something that I just genuinely get really passionate about. I've seen how much of an impact it's had on my clients and how these little small shifts that we're going to cover today can actually really benefit and like improve your life. So I'm really excited. With that being said, some of you probably don't know who I am. And so my name's Joseph Weaver. My technical title is a certified performance neuroscience coach, and I work with these usually seven-figure founders and big entrepreneurs and big content creators to help them almost achieve way more in less time. And this is by leveraging our brain and how we can tap into these peak states of performance. So I help them improve their creativity, their productivity, all of this sort of stuff. But before I was doing this, and what's intertwined with what I'm currently doing, is that it doesn't matter if we sort of generate this neuroscience backed schedule that allows them to be way more productive, way more creative, if they don't actually follow through and actually do it. And so that's what today's presentation is all going to be about, is how we actually follow through with what we want to be doing. Because without that, none of it really matters. So here's what we're going to break down and what we're going to cover today. First, we're going to cover why most procrastination advice just doesn't really work. Then we're going to go into like the 5 hidden reasons that creators procrastinate or founders procrastinate. And in reality, it's sort of just anyone procrastinates. We're then going to go into like the invisible cycle, which is keeping people stuck. We're going to follow that up with like a simple framework that you can use immediately to like on the thing that you're currently avoiding. And then we're going to cover like the most dangerous thought that a creator can have. So I want to get started because I want this to be sort of interactive, and I know it's kind of challenging if we can't see everyone. But I want you to raise your hand or put it in the chat if you have ever procrastinated, and I'll give you guys a second just to do that. So I know I know I definitely have every day. What about the rest? Because the honest truth is that if anyone's not putting a message in the chat right now, either they've already tapped out of this presentation and not paying attention, or they're lying to themselves. And if not, if they physically have, yeah, exactly, you're procrastinating typing in this chat. And if there is anyone in this group here that has never procrastinated in their life, we should probably just stop this presentation now, and I'll run this as an interview, and we'll interview you of how we actually do this, because I've never seen it in my life so far. So, perfect. I was 2 minutes late to this call. Exactly. Okay, so I think we've established that it's something that we all do. Oh, we're moving forward. Now, I want you to actually think of something because I want this to be actionable. I want this to be a workshop that you can go away going, hey, I've actually had some form of change. And so I want you to list or think of something that you're currently procrastinating. I don't want you to pick something just random. I want you to pick something like real, something that you know would matter if you actually did it. Right? It might be like posting a video, it might be sitting down to record, it might be editing a pitch, launching an offer, having a conversation with someone in your relationship, a partner, whatever that thing is. I want you to think of it. And if you're brave, I'd like you to put it in the chat because I'm going to tailor this presentation around some of these things that we're procrastinating. And once again, it can be kind of tricky. So even if it's just something that you're thinking about here, like maybe it's a phase of the creation process that you always find the most difficult, or you find that you might like find putting off. I know for me in the early years, it was doing, and still in the later years of being a content creator, it's putting off the sitting down and filming. So I want you guys to have a bit of a think because we are going to come back to that. But I'll give it a second just to see if anyone puts something in the chat of something that they're currently procrastinating. And it can be big, it can be small. Preparing a presentation for a conference. Awesome. Okay, yeah. I do social work for work, so I procrastinate my own social media journey. I keep promising myself I'm going to do new content, fashion, lifestyle, never do it. Also, my stack of books is really high right now. Okay, cool. So we've got a few things, and it's going to be important because we're going to work through whatever your current example is as we go through this as well. So it's awesome to know that we've got some situations. Now, here's the thing. Most procrastination advice doesn't really work. But before I go into this, I want to know, is there any procrastination advice that people have heard before? Like that they've either tried and maybe it does work for them. Like, is there any procrastination advice that you've heard, you've used, that you've maybe it's like the 2-minute rule, maybe it's like counting down from 10, maybe it's I don't know, sitting it down and breaking the work into small chunks. Like, has anyone ever actually tried fixing the challenge of their procrastination? So if I don't do this, then you can't have XYZ later. Okay. Okay, awesome. Well, not really awesome. We'll find a way that hopefully is to do without threatening, and it's gonna be super exciting. So here's the thing, right? Most procrastination doesn't actually work because it's not often dealing with like the root cause, right? Like often, if we, for example, let's use the example of we're sitting down to film recording. If you're not posting because you're worried, it's like deep down what people are going to think about you, it doesn't matter how many times you sit down and just work for 2 minutes or how you time block your time. None of it actually matters because you're still not going to press the post button because you're worried what people are going to think. And so the thing is, there's a whole number of reasons that that we procrastinate, and we're going to cover those in a minute. But I just want you to get thinking that going, actually perfectly next slide ties this exactly perfectly, is that procrastination is actually extremely personal, right? So two people can avoid the exact same task for two different reasons or three different reasons or multiple reasons, right? One person might avoid posting because they're confused and they don't know what to say. Another person might avoid posting because they're like scared of what people are going to think. Another might avoid it just because they're physically so exhausted. And the crazy thing here is it's the same behavior, but it's a completely different cause. So we all the procrastination shows up of not doing the task, but the reason we're not doing it is because multiple different things. And so if the cause is different, the solution has to be different as well. So tying it down is most people when we talk about procrastination will go into like time management or we've got to organize our time better, we've got to like do this, when in reality it's actually emotional. It's an emotional management challenge, right? You're not just avoiding recording, you're avoiding feeling awkward on camera. You're not just avoiding posting, you're avoiding the possibility that it gets no views. You're not just avoiding pitching, you're avoiding like the rejection or the judgment. And I think this is the key here, is that the task is really the whole problem. It's the emotion that's attached to the task, which is the problem. So here's the thing: if we had a whole bunch of time, and then you were like one of my clients, would go through all these different techniques and would dive into the neuroscience and change how our brain actually operates and all of these amazing things. However, we don't have the time for that today. But I do just want to touch on one thing that we actually have. The reason procrastination is like built into us is we've got different parts of the brain. One part of the brain, for example, has these big goals, has these big things. We're motivated to do these amazing things. And then the other part is trying to keep us safe. It's trying to conserve energy. It's trying to be like, oh, and this has evolved from in the past where like, hey, we had to survive, we had to forage for food, we had to do all these sort of things. And our brain's still in that same thing. And so when we go sit down, it goes, hey, am I safe? Like, why am I exerting all this energy when I don't need to? And so we have this like pull, and you can Google like the approach avoid conflict if you want to know a little bit more about like how we want to do something, but the closer to getting to do it, we actually sort of pull back. And that's where you go, hey, I need to do this work. You go to sit down and do the work, and you're like, oh, I want to do something else. Right. And so this is like an actual thing in our brain that's going on. But today, I want to give you guys something that's like that you guys can use right now. That can actually be like actionable with the thing that you're currently procrastinating. But before we dive into that, I want to cover the 5 reasons that you're probably procrastinating. And these are the most common ones that I observe with founders and entrepreneurs and creators and anyone that's like quite ambitious. You're probably going to relate to a few of these. The first is confusion. We procrastinate because it shows up as like a feeling or a thought of like, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to get started. And so has anyone experienced this? Like they're like, hey, I know I want to do this thing, but I just don't really know how to do it. And you find that you just don't really do it, or you put it off, and so I want you to raise a hand, or put it in the chat, just a one in the chat or whatever, being like, have you ever procrastinated because you haven't really known what to do, or you've told yourself, I don't know where to get started? Let's just see if this one relates to a few people. Andrew, appreciate that hand raise. Confusion. And to be fair, this is the reason you might actually be in the Bedford program, because you're going, hey, I know I want to do this content. I want to start creating content, but I just don't actually know what to do. I don't actually know even where to get started. The next most common reason, and once again, I suppose there's no real like order here. These are just all things there, like 5. Yeah, there's no real set order. Is overwhelm. So this is where you kind of like what you need to be doing, but you might be thinking, oh, I need to record, I need to edit, I need to post, I need to do comments, I need to do research, I need to pitch this pitch deck. And because it's so overwhelming, because there's so much, it almost becomes this big mountain and we avoid the actual first step. And so this sort of shows up as like, there's just too much to do. I can't get it all done. I just don't have time for it all. And overwhelm makes the task feel bigger than it actually is. And so the solution with overwhelm is usually like coming down to constraint, right? It's like not doing everything, but what's the one next thing? And this is actually where a lot of common procrastination advice like comes in, where it's like, oh, break it down into small tasks. And so it's usually if you're overwhelmed, this is where most general procrastination advice actually helps. Number 3, spin ahead, is self-doubt, right? We often tell ourselves, and this will show up as going like, oh, I'm too young, I'm too old, I'm too dumb, I'm too slow, I'm too fast, I'm not good enough, right? Like, oh, other people can do it better, right? And this is a big one in the content creator space, because you're constantly like looking at other creators and you're going, oh, I can't do it as well as them. Oh, I just don't have the experience, right? And so because you don't have the experience, this gets in the way, and as a result, you don't actually end up doing the thing, or you end up putting off the thing. And I think for creators, it's going like, oh yeah, who am I to post, or why would anyone listen to me? The next one is fear. And this is like a big one that I feel like that comes up in the content creator space, is going, what will people think of me? What if I fail? What if my friends see it? What if I post it and no one cares? What if I succeed and then people expect more from me? Right? Like fear turns like a simple action into like a perceived threat. And I think this is really interesting, because in my content journey, when I first started posting, I was scared of like what my friends were going to think of me. What my not my family, but what my friends, my family, my football team, all of those were going to say, because I'm putting myself out there and it's a little bit cringe. And here's the kind of crazy part, is that once I had sort of blown up my account in terms of, and I had like 500,000 followers and all of this sort of stuff, it kind of completely switched. I still had the fear, but it was no longer about people seeing the content. It was now going, wait, like before it was like, oh, no one's even seeing it, so it doesn't really matter. Then it became, oh, wait a minute, millions of people are seeing this content. Like, what? It has to be good enough, right? Like, so I want to just preface with all of this, like these challenges and obstacles. It doesn't matter how far you are along your content creation journey. They actually always show up in different little ways, and they just morph and shift. And so the more we can practice the skill that I'm going to teach you at the end, the better, and that like you're going to find it impacts every sort of area of your life, which is super exciting. Uh, so the final one here is actually low energy, right? This shows up because, and it's quite important, because often like the rest of sort of like mindset things and so forth, but it is possible that you just are fully drained. You get home from work and you're actually just physically exhausted, you need to take a little bit of a break, and you actually need to recover, right? So the yeah, like, the thing is, I wanna preface this with going, it's easy to fall into this trap of, getting home from work if you're still working your, like, day job and then going, "Oh, I'm too exhausted, I don't have time." Like, it's really easy to fall into this trap. And sometimes the low energy is real, right? Like, you physically need to recover, but sometimes it's also just your brain trying to trick you into going, "Oh, I wanna save energy, I wanna reserve, I can justify not working right now because I've done so much work." But if, for example, we sat down and I told you on, say, like a Friday night, you've just finished work, you've finished a big day, and I was like, "Oh, if you post a video tonight, like, I'll give you $10,000, or I'll give you $100,000." I could almost imagine that for most people, it's not gonna be like, "Oh, I physically just have no energy to do this." It's more of like "Oh, I'll do that." Like, the reward is actually there. And I really want you to start looking at it and going, "Hey, every one of these posts, like, that could actually be true." If you're saying, like, say, a real estate agent and you're posting content and you're selling a house, if one of those content, like, goes to the right audience, you might make 20, 10, 20, $30,000 commission, potentially even more if you're selling the big houses. And so if you start looking at it from a different angle of going, wait a minute, this could be the video that blows up, or this could be the video that does it. And we're going to get into that in a second. So, just as a bit of a recap, these are the 5 top reasons for why you're probably procrastinating. And it's important to understand, like, which one of these you fall into. And once again, you can fall into each one of these in different areas of your life or different situations. And so every sort of situation is extremely personal, and that's why general procrastination advice doesn't really work. And so the thing here we want to just really factor in is going, if you're confused, you need to look and find some clarity. And the crazy part is, I just want to do a little story around the confusion part, is that this shows up so often in, like, coaching calls that I do, or sometimes even these big creators. It's going like, "Oh, I just don't know what to do. I don't know what the product I should launch is, or what my next video idea is, or whatever." And it's amazing. Like, that'll almost be like a default response from them. And then I'll say, "Oh, like, if you had to take your, like, best guess, like, where do you think you'd start?" And then they'll go, "Oh, well, I'll do this, and then I'll do this, and then I'll do this and this." And then I'm like, "So wait, you do know where to start?" And they're like, "Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, I actually do." And so I really want to ask you, if you're going like, "Hey, I don't know where to start," I challenge you to question yourself right now and go, "Wait a minute, do I actually know what the first step is?" Because more often than not, you actually do know what to do, or you know the step to be able to figure it out. So then with overwhelm, if you're overwhelmed, it's generally needing some constraint or being able to minimize some things. If it's self doubt, you need to find some believable evidence. If you're afraid, you need to find that safety and courage. And if you're low energy, you may need some recovery. But there is one more form of procrastination, which I think is the most common that sort of appears with the big founders and creators I work with. And that is, it's really sneaky, but something called productive procrastination. And this is when you're doing the useful work to avoid the important work. A simple example of this is, you go to sit down and do the work, you're sitting down at your desk, and then all of a sudden you go, "Oh, I should clean my room. Oh, I should do the dishes. Oh, wait a minute, I need to do the laundry." Like, has anyone in this chat done that before? They've sat down to work and then they go, "Oh, actually, I need to clean my room. I need to do another chore." And the crazy thing is, it's productive. It's something that you need to do, and you tell yourself you need to do it, but it's not actually getting you closer to the result. Right? A creator example of this is more around, like, you're tweaking like a Notion system instead of posting. You're researching cameras instead of recording. You're redesigning your website instead of doing the pitching. You're watching another lesson instead of applying the last one. Right? So this is the most sneaky thing that shows up, I think, so often. Or it might be like, for example, planning 30 pieces of content instead of actually publishing the one. And the thing is, none of these are actually bad. The problem is when they actually avoid the scary thing, which might be the recording, the posting, the pitching, the making the sale. Um, and so, yeah, the key here that I really want you to take away is that sometimes procrastination doesn't look like doing nothing. Sometimes it looks like being very busy, just on the wrong thing. And I guess like a little bit of a check. I have to say, man, my chair keeps going up and down. It's a little bit of a roller coaster. Um, the key here that I really want you to take away is that asking yourself, if I'm not in the situation that I want to be doing, like if I'm not having the success that I want to be having, it's probably or potentially that you're not doing the right actions to get the right results. And I think deep down we often know what those right things are. We're just not doing them. For me, it was this is what I was really guilty of. I loved I launched a whole group program. I was good at developing these programs, developing courses, doing the actual content creation, all of that sort of stuff. But I was never actually growing my business. I was like doing all the stuff that I found fun and found interesting. However, I was procrastinating and putting off. I didn't realize this at the time. I was putting off like actually having the conversations, doing the outreach, putting myself out there and going like, hey, like, do you want to work with me? And it wasn't until I prioritized that actually my business started taking off. So that's enough on that. Here's the thing where we start getting a little bit more exciting. And so all procrastination actually follows this whole sort of underlying loop of behavior. And so this is almost what we want to like burn into our brain, right? Is this model here is that there's a circumstance that happens, and this is just like a neutral fact. It's like we lose a job, say, like that in itself is just neutral. We sit down to post content, so forth and so forth. So we have the neutral circumstance, and this can trigger a thought. And all a thought is a sentence in our head. That thought creates a feeling, which all the feeling is a vibration in our body. That feeling creates an action. And once again, that action might be no action. That leads to a result. And usually speaking, that result refreshes almost like and builds evidence for the initial thought that we're having or the belief that we're having. And so I'm going to run through a bit of an example here because like we really want to understand this. So the circumstance, you sit down to make a video content for your personal brand. The thought you might have is, oh, but my videos get no views, right? Like, oh, what's the point? No one's going to see it anyway. Why am I spending all this effort and like no one's going to like? You're going to have some form of thought that appears. And so let's go with the thought of my videos get no views. That creates a bit of a feeling of like depleted, right? You're like, oh, you're just like, it doesn't feel very good. It doesn't feel very motivating. That leads to the action of going like, oh, I'll just do it tomorrow, or oh, I'm just not in the right mindset to do it, and then you don't record. And as a result, there's no post. And this refreshes that thing of like my videos get no views. If you've got no videos out there, they're definitely not going to get any views. Now, this is the thing where I want this to be interactive, and we're going to take a second here. Is I want you to start mapping your own current cycle with the thing that you're currently procrastinating. And so I think we had one was doing like a presentation that they'd been procrastinating, and was doing something around her own content. Like, and I want you guys to get to specific. So, for example, I think it was with Andrew doing the pitch deck. It's when you sit down to actually do the thing. What's the thought or the feeling that comes up? Or when you think about doing that pitch deck, what's the thought that appears? And I want to give you guys a second to actually run through this whole process. But the most important part here, and I really invite you to put it in the chat, is the thought that appears when you think about doing that thing. And so we're gonna give this a couple of minutes. And once again, we don't need to overthink this here. Like once again, it might be a whole bunch of different thoughts. It might be it could be a whole bunch of different things. And so let's just do the first ones that come to mind. Oh, I wish I hadn't been asked to give this presentation. Okay, it's a pretty strong thought. And I imagine, like, how's that thought, Andrew, Like, what feeling does that sort of invoke in your body? It's like, when you think of like, "Oh, I wish I hadn't been asked to give this presentation," what does that really sort of feel like? Is it sort of a yeah, I'm just curious to know. Is it sort of a, um, is it like a fear? Is it like a tightness in the chest? Is it like you don't feel yeah, you don't feel like doing it, you don't wanna be doing it? Like, what do you think's the feeling there that creates? I feel a bit more tired at the thought. Yeah, okay, okay, perfect. So it's just the body, the feeling is like tired. And as a result, you probably convince yourself and not take the action. And I really want everyone else, even if you're not putting it in the chat, to really actually think this through, because the most important part of this whole process, which I think I have circled in the slide, is yeah, how we actually break the cycle. We'll jump into a second. Is we need to really start getting clear on that thought that's actually creating the sort of situation that we have at the moment. And so it's really important to think is like we want to be thinking the thoughts that get the results that we want, not thinking the thoughts for our current situation. And so, yeah, I want you guys, just as I'm talking about this next bit, to see if you can come up with that thought, because it's going to be super important at the end of this. So the question is, how do we break this cycle? Right? Most people try and break this cycle at the action point, right? At the action level. They say, "Oh, I just need to force myself to do this." Right? But if the thought is still creating the same feeling, you're going to be fighting your brain every single time. I like to think about this as going like if you're driving with the handbrake on, it's you're still having this negative thought, right? You're forcing yourself to take action while the same thought is creating resistance. It's like driving with the handbrake on. You know, your body wants to do this and do this whole thing, and you're trying to force yourself by putting the foot on the accelerator. But in the back of your mind, you've got this thought and this feeling going, "Hey, I don't want to do this." And this is why people think of like discipline of going like, "Oh, I'm trying to force myself to do these different things." When what if there's a way where we don't actually have to force ourselves to do this, we actually are motivated and excited to do this. It's going to feel so much more easy. It's going to feel so much more freeing. It's just going to be so much more exciting. So the thing here is to break the cycle, we want to really focus on the thought component. Because if we can change the thought, then we're going to change the feeling, which is going to change the action, which is going to change the result. And so this is the most important part. And so, for example, if I wanted to change that thought, if I, for some reason, had the thought of this could be the video that blows up my account, or the right person is waiting to see this. Uh, for example, if I went with the example of this is going to be the video that blows up my account, right? In this case, I know that that's actually true. For one, I've seen other people that it's happened for. But two, in my own experience, I've had one video alone that got me 183,000 followers. And it's amazing to see with the big creators and stuff that I work with that if you break it down into where majority of their following came from, it'll be like generally less than 1% of their actual posts. You know, it'll be a handful of posts that have generated hundreds or thousands or millions of followers. And so I think we often think it going like, hey, this could be the video that blows up my account. And this is the key here is we want to think the thought that gets the result that you want. Because there's no real benefit in thinking a thought that doesn't get us the result. Like it doesn't make us take action. It doesn't make us feel motivated. It doesn't make us feel excited. Um, and yeah, that's the whole thing. But you might be wondering, I guess, how do we change a thought? You know, like, hey, Joseph, it's all good going like, yeah, if I could change my thought instead of thinking, oh, this is going to get no views, that this could be the video that blows up my account, right? Or whatever. Or like, oh, I don't have the money. Or, for example, in Andrew's case, I wish I hadn't been asked to give this presentation. Like, you're going, well, how can I change that thought? Like, that's the thought that I'm having. This is a key point that we need to understand is that any belief that you have, all it is a thought plus some evidence that you have for. And so to strengthen a belief, you need to just find more evidence for the thing. Or if you're trying to break a belief, you've got to find evidence that contradicts the belief that you currently have. And so I think this is like, and this is also how so many people in this world can have completely different beliefs And I guess, like, there's two, like, one, for some reason, the first thing that pops into my mind is like flat Earth and not flat Earth, right? Like, there are people in this world that believe the Earth is flat, and there's the people in this Earth that believe the Earth is round. The thing is, the only difference between those sort of things is the evidence that people have. The people that think the Earth is flat probably just go like, "Well, we can't like I don't know, we whatever the they can't see the thing." I don't know. Regardless, the point is that they've got different evidence to make that belief true. And so, what we want to be doing is we want to be almost shaking up the belief that we have currently, if it's something that's not actually serving us or helping us. So, breaking this down, it's three steps. The first step is identifying the thought, which is what we did before, which is actually the thing that's holding you back. Then we want to find something called like the anti thought. This is the thought that if we truly believed it, it would make doing that thing extremely easy, or would be motivated, or would want to be doing it. And then the key part here is that we need to find evidence for that new thought. And if we can do this, it's going to be amazing to see like how like because we can't have two thoughts that are the same. We can't say, "Hey, I've got lots of money and I've got enough money," or whatever. Like those two cancel each other out. And we'll go more into like designing the anti thought in a second. But I just want to run through this exact same scenario with this new thought. So say now you sit down to make a video content. Before you had the thought of like my videos get no views, but you sit down and you go, okay, wait a minute, what is the new thought that like if I actually believed it would actually make me take action? And so in this case, for the one that relates most to me, or that I feel the most strongest about, is this could be the video that blows up my account, or this is the video that could get me a new client, or the right person is seeing this video. All of which like can't actually exist with this video getting no views. And then naturally, you want to find some evidence. For me, it's like that already has evidence in itself because in the past it's happened before, and I know it's happened for other people, and so it can happen for me. And that sentence itself is this could be the video that blows up my account, makes me feel excited, right? It gets me motivated, it gets me energized. And that leads to me recording the video with high energy. And as a result, I have a video posted. And this also then stacks into the evidence and builds this new thought of going, wait a minute, this could be the video. And the important thing here is that I think I want to cover it here is that when we work on these anti thoughts, this is probably the most important part is that we need to make sure they actually cancel each other out. And so if it's going, I don't know where to start, the anti thought might be, I know exactly where to start. Or if it's, I'm too old, I'm the right age to get started. Or it's, there's too much to do, there's enough time for what's important. The key here is that I was running through this process with a client, and he was having these challenges around like money. And he was like, oh, I'm not making enough money. And like I see everyone else having all the success and like whatever. And then he was like, "Oh, but but the thought that I come back to is that I'm really grateful for what I have. I have a loving family. I have loving friends. I like going out and just being in nature." Now, once again, that's amazing. I'm not saying don't be not great. Don't be grateful for what we have. Like I think it's such an awesome trait and it's really good. But that doesn't actually help remove that initial thought because both of them can exist at the same time. You can be worried about money and still appreciate your life and be grateful for the things that you have. And so we really want to make sure that when we're coming up with this thought, we cancel out their initial thought and then we look for evidence. And so I want to run this through an example so you can actually experience it and feel it. Uh, so what I want you to do is we're going to take a moment here because this is the most important part, is that I want you to put your current thought that you have, and then I want you to put your anti-thought in the chat as well. And then and then think about some evidence, but you don't need to put the evidence in the chat. I just want to hear your current thought and then your anti-thought, the one that's going to cancel it out. And then if there's a bit of time, obviously we can do a little bit of some live code. It's a bit hard if people can't unmute and talk, but we will see. We'll see if that's possible. So yeah, we're gonna take a second here. So I'm not going to be moving on until we have a few current thoughts and then the anti thought. That if you the key part here is that once again, when you're thinking about the anti thought as well, you don't even have to believe it when you first come up with it. That's what the evidence is for. Current thought: there are so many cooler girls making New York content and lifestyle content online. Anti thought: I'm the coolest New York content lifestyle girl, and my content needs to be seen. Awesome, man. That's awesome. And so I'd ask on that as well, is like, what's some evidence for that? Right? Like, because here's the thing. There's no point coming up with an anti-thought if we don't actually believe it. Right. And so I wanna and what makes you like what evidence do you have that makes you the coolest New York content or lifestyle girl? And like why does your content need to be seen? And yeah, I'm really interested to see, Andrew, what's the thought? What's your anti-thought for, yeah, I wish I hadn't been asked to give this presentation. Current thought: we have so much to do on a tight deadline. Anti-thought: I haven't really determined what is the MVP. So Ben, in this case here, both of those can be true, right? We've got so much to do on a tight deadline, and the anti thought is, I haven't really determined what the MVP is. Like, both of those can be true, right? You can have a tight deadline and you've got so much to do, and you haven't really determined the MVP. And so, what's the, I guess this is also more specific on a general sense. If there's so much to do, the thought, for example, actually, I'll give you a second to see if you can come up with what's a thought that sort of cancels out that we have so much to do on a tight deadline. Because at the moment, I imagine that current thought of we have so much to do on a tight deadline is causing this whole bunch of stress or this feeling or tenseness in your body. What's a thought that directly counters out there? And if we haven't got something that fully cancels it out, once again, you might find that I haven't really determined what MVP is, uh, sort of helps because you're like, oh, I know what the next step is, or I'm not clear on that. But what's something that would cancel out that first thought? Andrew, anti thought: this won't actually take that long. Existing evidence. I've already pre-sentenced similar content. Okay, so once again, this is good learning experience here. So with Andrew, you've got this won't actually take that long. Once again, that would be an awesome thought if, for example, maybe once again, maybe your original thought's actually different to what you had. Because if your original thought was going, "Oh, this is going to take so long. Oh, this is going to be so much harder. I wish like," and maybe that is the actual reason for why you didn't want to be chosen for this presentation because you're like, "Oh, it's going to take so much long. So it takes so long." If that's the actual initial thought, then I would agree that this won't actually take that long. Existing evidence thing like that's going to be helpful. So I just want to clarify: is your actual initial thought the whole reason why you didn't want to do this? Just because the original thought was, I wish I hadn't been asked to give this presentation. Was that just like the top layer, and the underlying was because it's going to take so much time. And this is one of the things where it would be awesome to do it like in a live coaching, actual talking thing. But I feel like because the way this setup is set up, I don't think we have the option to do this. Because this would, yeah, you'd actually be able to really see that change. That being said, I'm more than happy if there's people after this that aren't fully getting it or fully going like, hey, actually, I know how much of an impact this can have. Just send me a message on the platform, and I'm more than happy to like just schedule in a quick 10-minute chat or whatever where we can like actually make this shift because it's so much easier in conversation. Um, Andy thought this won't actually take that long. Evidence, yeah, I think you're right. So that's the thing is, once again, I think you've got to know in yourself, and if we're coaching, I'd ask a couple of questions. Is going, what is that? And I guess this is a perfect example for everyone, highlighting how important it is to figure out like what is that current thought that's actually holding you back and stopping you from doing the thing, right? Like we want to be able to get laser focused on that. Is it that, oh, I think this is going to be so much harder, or this is going to take so much energy, or this is going to take so long, or there's so much work to do? Like whatever that actual core thought is, that's what we really want to dig into. And I guess that's where you've got a coach in Bedford as well, Tom, awesome, awesome guy, that will be able to even help dig into that. Like, what is the actual core underlying feeling or the thought that's actually holding you back from doing the thing? Um, because that's where we can refine it. Pretty cool that I was the one asked to do the presentation. Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. If the actual thought is going, "Oh, I don't want to be asked to do this," it could be like, "Hey, I'm the perfect guy for this presentation," or "I'm excited to show my leadership skills," or "Oh, I'm excited to show off how good I am at this," or like what one of these. Because the key is we want to make sure, and this is the most important part, that that new thought impacts the way that we're feeling. And if it doesn't impact the way that we're feeling to get motivated to do the thing, then we want to find a new thought. The new thought should really create this feeling of like, I want to do it. Like why like stop holding me back. I want to get down and actually like dial in, right? And so if your anti thought isn't creating that, or for example in Ben's case, where you're like, oh, there's just so much to do, it's such a tight deadline, and because it's so stressful, you're not actually doing anything, then you want to make sure your anti thought feels like relaxed. It's like a, well, I know. So I'll just respond. What do people who I am producing something for actually need to see? Messes in process is only something I see. My evidence, similar to Andrew, I've done this before. I know how to break this down. So what do people who I'm producing something for actually need to see? The messes in the process is only something I see. Yeah. So for example, just being, so if I was going through with your previous current thought of the, we have so much to do on a tight deadline, right? The anti thought for something like that could be, I have the exact amount of time that I need to get the most important things done, or well, yeah. There's, I guess, because do I have some examples on? So the one that would relate probably closest to this is, like there's too much to do. It's like there's enough time for what's important. It might be like there's enough time to get the MVP out, or whatever. It's something. It's something that directly cancels out the initial thought, and that feeling there of going, there's enough time for what's important. Like that actually can feel more relaxing, more motivating, more. Um, yeah, often I feel this way when I don't pause to come up with a plan. Yeah, exactly. So in the beginning, Ben, it might be just going, "Hey, I need that clarity." It's like there's enough time to get clear on what I need to achieve and get those things done. Like that thought might be something that goes, "Okay, wait a minute. Like there is enough time. There's always in the past I've felt like this before. I know other people that have." And here's the thing: when we're pulling for evidence, especially if you're trying to make a massive change from your current thought to the anti-thought, and it just seems unreal, pull on all forms of evidence. It can be semi-related. It can be in your own experience. It can be that, hey, I've seen other people do this, so I know it's possible. We want to find as much evidence as possible. So yeah. So with that being said, I'm gonna just continue on with the presentation, but I really invite anyone, even if it's after this presentation, to put their thought in, their any thought, if they're going like, yeah. Once again, I would have loved to do this live, because it makes such more like you can. It would have been so cool because this is one of the coolest things to see is when someone comes in, they're talking about it, and they're like, "Oh, I'm really stressed. I've got this, and I'm getting nothing done." To like the shift in their energy when they go, actually, wait a minute, this is fine. Like I'm gonna be able to do this. Like it's so cool to see visually, but you'll just have to trust me and imagine. And if you want to experience that personally, just send me a message and we'll run through there. But I just want to finish up this here with going, what is like the most dangerous thought that a founder, a creator, that anyone can really have? Right? And I think it's crazy because this thought sounds so reasonable, it sounds so logical, and it sounds like you're just being honest, right? But it often is the thought that always shows up before someone quits. They finally give up posting, they finally just stop. And that thought is, it's not working, right? If you ever have this thought, it's not working, it is the most dangerous thought that can have. And I invite you as quickly as possible to change that to it's working and finding some evidence. And I think this is so I know how to describe it. It's so easy to fall into this trap because at any point you can find like say I post a video and then no one sees it or no one watches it. It's so easy to default to go, oh, it's not working. What's the point of this? And then you go down this negative thought spiral. Whereas if you go, hey, I post this, it comes up, and then you go, okay, well, this is just part of the process. Like you reframe it and go, oh, it is working. It's part of the process. I've just gained more data. I'm in the process discovery phase of trying to figure out like what actually works, what doesn't work. This is part of it. It's working. I'm actually making the progress. Because most of the progress is actually non-linear, especially in content. It's like nothing, 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 massive spike up, and then it's your whole life is different. And then it's amazing how it can go from absolutely nothing to everything so quickly. But most people like have the thought of, oh, it's not working, and then they give up. And so I really invite you to, whenever you feel down, whenever it feels like things aren't working, to make that shift. And so here's a little important thought is realizing that we can't choose our first thought, but we have full control of our second. And I'm going to say that again is that we can't choose our first thought, but we can choose our second. And so when we're going through the example, that first thought, when we first go to sit down and film, or we go and sit down to do that presentation, or we're like, oh, what's that next task, or to start posting our own content, the first thought that might have is going, oh, no one's going to see this, or oh, what's the point? Why was I chosen for this? But understanding that we have full control over the second thought of, do we want to actually reframe this? Is that first thought actually true? Because that first thought is always going to be designed based on the patterns, based on like the way our brain's been wired for our whole life. And so that automatic thought is going to be there. It's a matter of getting in front of it and going, wait a minute, like, is that true? Is it not? And just as we talked about before, where a belief is just a thought with some evidence, then it's going, is it true? And you question it. And then you go, actually, no, it's not because of X, Y, and Z. And once again, remembering that we want to think the thoughts that get us the results that we want, not the thoughts that keep us in the same place. So I just want to run through what we covered. We covered that procrastination is actually like just hidden emotional management. It's not always sort of like a time problem. We covered the different reasons and understand that there's different solutions. There's confusion, overwhelm, self doubt, fear, low energy, and the sneaky one of productive procrastination. Then understanding that even though there's different reasons, it's the same underlying loop. The circumstance creates a thought, which results in a feeling, which creates an action, and that result re-loops back into the thought that we have the next time. We want to watch out for the most dangerous thought that will often pop up, and it's guaranteed probably to pop up in anyone's entrepreneurial journey of it's not working. And then we want to make sure that we actually actively take the time to reset the loop. We want to catch the thought. We want to choose our second thought like actively. We want to find existing evidence to back up that new thought. That's going to make us take the action, and that action is going to create new evidence for stuff in the future. So here's my 24-hour challenge to you is like pick one of these things that you've been procrastinating on. Maybe it's that, like the presentation, maybe it's posting on your own page, maybe it's like figuring out what that MVP is, and maybe it's something that's been put off. And I want you to set a time in the next 24 hours where you're like, hey, this is when I'm going to sit down and actually do this thing. Then before you even sit down to do the thing, or if you sit down to do the thing, and you're like, oh, I should do something else, or you find it's being pushed off, literally run through that process. Because we've got to understand that this isn't going to instantly just change overnight. It can change in a moment, but you're going to have to refresh your mind on going like, wait a minute, I need to find the anti-thought and I need to find some evidence. And you want to reset that loop. And you're going to find that if you do that just before you do the work, you're going to be like, wait a minute, like I'm no longer having to drive with the handbrake on, no longer having to force myself to do this. I'm actually like just excited to get it done. And the crazy part with a lot of procrastination and stuff is that we think the task is bigger than it is. We put something off for over and over, and then we sit down and we're like, wait a minute, that just took 20 minutes. Or that took 10 minutes. Like to film my own video, like, wait a minute, like that was easy. What am I doing? And that creates evidence for the next time to go like, wait a minute, last time it was really easy. So with that being said, we've got like a few minutes left. is there any like sort of questions? It can be around the procrastination, it can be around maybe other areas of expertise that I have around like performance neuroscience and how we can become more productive and all of that. That being said, that might need to be saved for another presentation. But is there any questions or anything that's not clear, or people go, oh, yeah, I want to understand this a little bit better? Anything we should avoid doing when procrastination thoughts arise? The thing is, I think first is understanding that we're constantly going to have these thoughts that get in the way. So we're constantly going to have thoughts that cause us and create us to procrastinate. It's the way our brains evolved. And so we, yeah, anything we should avoid when procrastination thoughts arise. So the the key here is letting them just keep play over and over. The second you can find awareness and go, oh, wait a minute, like I'm procrastinating. You find yourself scrolling on TikTok and you're like, oh, wait a minute, I should be doing something. The second you have that moment, really then start of going like, wait a minute, what's the thought that's causing this? Or like, what is the thought that I'm avoiding this? And when you have that moment, that's when you go, okay, well, how is this thought? Like, actually just question yourself. And you're going to find this is going to be a crazy experience for all of you if you actually realize that every single thing you do after this call for the rest of your life, right, is almost led by that cycle. So if you do something, if you go to a party or you don't go to a party, if you go to the supermarket or you don't go to the supermarket, you put the bins out or you don't put the bins out, right? All of this is led by the thought that you're experiencing. And when you realize that, wait a minute, you go and you start questioning yourself, going, well, what's the thought that's creating this action or not creating this action? And you start like looking at life and going, wait a minute, all the things I do is because I'm feeling some sort of way about something. And that way that I'm feeling is being generated from some thought. Sometimes it'll be automatic, but you can go back and go, oh, well, what is the thought? Like, why did I even show up on this presentation? Like there's some thought that you had going into this to even decide to show up and spend your time with me today. And I'm extremely grateful that you did. But that's the thing. And so the key is understanding that these thoughts are always going to happen because our brain is trying to protect us and trying to make us conserve energy and not do these things. So understanding that these thoughts will arise, but really becoming a parent of going like, hey, even though these thoughts are automatic and they come up, we have full control of choosing what our second thought is. Like, and that's the key is like we have the moment of going, do I want to keep with this thought pattern or do I want to change it? Because that's something we have full control over. So that's the important thing. And then catch the loop is really wonderful, easy phrase to remember. Yeah, exactly. It's like we just want to find that, yeah, catch ourselves doing it, and then we want to catch ourselves and find the anti-thought. So is there any final questions that pop up? I'm just trying to think if there's anything else that's coming up to the top of mind there. I want to share is that one little concept that I want to just finally maybe end off on, unless there's another question, is something about the topic of motivation. I'm a big believer that we don't actually really do anything in life without the motivation to do it. So, for example, putting the bins out, like there's got to be some motivation to actually go do the thing. And motivation, one of the most simple ways to define a motivation is all motivation is belief plus desire. And this is another cool thing to ingrain into your brain is that motivation or the level of motivation is equal to the belief that we can actually do the thing and the desire to actually get the result that we want. So, for example, say we want to make $1 billion, right? You might have the desire. The desire might be extremely strong to go, I want to make $1 billion. And you might feel like there's a little bit of motivation. But if you don't actually believe that you can make $1 billion or that you can figure it out, there's just not going to be much motivation to go, oh, make $1 billion. Otherwise everyone would go and just make $1 billion, right? Like the desire is there, they'd be motivated, but it's the thing. Another example is with putting the bins out, right? You might find that hey, like the desire is extremely low, but the belief that you can actually go and put the bins out, like the very fact of going, oh, I can grab the bins and put them out, like I know I can do that, but the desire is not there. So if you're ever lacking motivation in life, notice that going, hey, I need to remind myself or boost the desire, or I need to boost the belief in the thing that I can actually do. And I think this is super important. So with that bin example, it's going, usually you'll find that all of a sudden, once you put some raw chicken in there or the bin starts smelling, all of a sudden you've still got the belief that you can do it, but now the desire is way higher because now it just stinks. And you're like, okay, now the bins have got to go out. Or the bin men are going to come, I don't know, the next day, and you're like, hey, I have to do this now. And so, really understanding that's another key takeaway is that motivation equals belief plus desire. And if you're ever not feeling motivated, figure out how do I boost the belief or boost the desire.